This is rocking. What's it sound like from outside the room? Which means, what's it sound like in the real world? Yeah, right. So what it really means is don't be a dickhead. I'm not a musician. I'm a producer.
In partnership with Australian Institute of Music and Hunting with Pixels.
You're an artist first, even though you're self-produced. How much of that hat do you apply to extracting work from the people you work with?
It's a great question. Because I would never dare call myself a musician, you know. I'm not a musician. I'm a producer. That's when I said I was a born producer, that's because that's what I am. I'm not a musician. I know music. I understand music. And I also understand people. Right. Or I like to understand people. And like, I think producers or record company people who and managers who have a long career in music recognise talent. And, you know, that's one of the other, you know, skills or whatever of a producer is, and you know this from watching artists, if there's talent there, is you make sure you stay out of the way.
Right. So being egoless about the whole process.
Oh yeah, I mean that's not, you know, that's not to mean, you know, there's that famous saying, you know, that people say Quincy said at that recording of We Are the World, check your ego at the door. Mm-hmm. And he actually said, no, I never actually said that. But it's a cliche, but all it means is don't be a dickhead.
Yeah.
That's all it means. It doesn't mean leave your pride and leave your skill and leave your courage at the door, right? But those things are intertwined with ego, right? So what it really means is don't be a dickhead. And the older you get, you tend to cut those people out of what you do anyway, and just work with people who can be cool. You know, as Keith Richards says, you know, can you hang? You know, and if you can't, it's too hard. Yeah. So being an artist, I honestly believe, this is a circuitous way of saying, I think my art was to produce. I mean, I was in a band and we had to be successful, but the minute that band came out of the underground, because we were underground, the minute we crossed into having commercial hits, you know, our souls probably weren't that happy.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it was a tricky place for us because really the Rockmelons were 3 producers in a room.
Okay.
That's it, you know, who just love to have fun and be creative. And when we started, we were just regarded as completely weird and odd and whatever. And then bands like Soul to Soul came along and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, they're great. I'm like, well, you know, what are we, you know, chopped liver? I was like, we've been doing that for years. But we were treated with great suspicion and it didn't bother us in the least. In fact, we enjoyed it.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I mean, for me, the Rockmelons and, you know, songs like New Groove were pivotal in allowing soul music and R&B music to be in our hemisphere. So were you mindful that you were making that kind of music? You know, you're making it with some courage, and you're saying, well, in conviction, and saying, well, this is, you know, we're going into a new territory here.
Yeah.
Or was it just we're just creating it and it just happened by accident?
It's what we did. It's just what we did, and it goes to the genesis of the band and how the band started. You know, Jonathan and I are Canberra boys. Grew up in Canberra, and in Canberra you make your own fun.
Yeah.
You know, or you don't have any, and it's true, and that's true of a lot of bands who come from small towns. And a lot of bands do, because where's your entertainment? It's each other, you know. And in my case, you know, playing with my brother, and my brother was the musician, as you probably know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so most of the playing, especially on the second Rockies record, is Jonathan. And so that relationship, I mean, straight away I could see, wow, you're really talented. okay? And music wasn't the only thing he was talented at. I mean, he was just an incredibly lateral, left brain, creative cat. And so he played like a military snare thing for the kids when he was about 8 to walk into class, you know, and that's how he started playing drums. And he's just a natural. And he just kicked the shit out of a drum kit. And that's all listening to like John Bonham, Rolling Stones, all that great Brit rock soul, which is blues, which is soul, which is all that good stuff. It's all on the good foot, as they say. And I thought that's just what drummers did until I moved to Sydney and realised that he was pretty special, you know, and he spoilt me as as a producer with a musician at his disposal. He completely spoilt me.
So was he kind of your first experience at extracting that good stuff out of an artist?
Yeah.
I noticed in the few times that we've worked together in that capacity, there's the dynamic of, I really enjoyed the dynamic of, you know, that's why I asked you about having a global overview of things. It seemed like you let things rattle around and create and make a bunch of mistakes, and then you'd be the one that would sort of say, that's it. And sort of step in the part of the process that seems to work, whether or not you were conscious of the end result you wanted. So you sort of, and it was just like never overbearing, but just sort of, okay, yep, that's the way, that's what we want to hear.
Yeah, look, the Rockies were, we were 3 producers in a room, and that process could be amazing, and it could bog down.
Right.
There's 3 of us.
Yep.
And I had an overview, but then you may recall, right, that Ray had an overview of the overview.
Right.
Now people kind of go, what's Ray doing? He's not really in, he's not really involved. He is involved. He's just outside the room, which is a really critical view.
Right.
Right?
Interesting.
We used to call it the outside the room test.
Right.
That's right. This is rocking. What's it sound like from outside the room? Which means, what's it sound like in the real world?
Yeah, right.
All right. And Ray, and we would be like high fives, this is awesome. Ray can come and go, no. And we'd be so furious, you know, you bastard, you know.
Yeah, just an hour.
But he'd be, you know, often he would be right. Because he's just listening outside going, is that rock and roll? And sometimes he would come in when we were just goofing off and he'd go, that.
Yeah, right, okay.
What's that? What are you doing? Well, we're not doing anything. Oh, wow. It's like, no, that's cool.
Yeah, nice.
You know. Yeah. So, and Ray really comes from that Eno school, and being a DJ, and that's why we were, you know, like the bands like Soul to Soul. Probably the other band, there was a band called Was Not Was, that a famous producer, Don Was, came out of. And they were the same, they're just 2 guys, they're just 2 producers in a room. Same thing, hide their own singers. But we never modelled ourselves on anyone. It just happened. It was an accident. Even the name was an accident. You know, like it was when punk hit, and Ray and I was like, what would be the stupidest name you could have for a punk band? And I was like, the Rockmelons. And we used to write Rockmelons Rule around the campus in chalk and stuff. And we called ourselves that when we threw a little warehouse party. And people loved it. They loved, not the name, they loved the band. And suddenly they're like, when the Rockmelons playing again, we're like,
That's sticking.
We're stuck with it, you know, and that's it.
That for life.
Yeah. Oh, what I'm saying is, was I an artist? Not really ever, I don't think.
Okay. Yep.
I think I was a producer.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though you were in that pocket. So how do you reference your music when you're creating something? Let's talk about the sort of the process. So when you're creating something now, do you outsource to people to get opinions and so in place of perhaps, you know, what Ray might have been in the past, do you send it to someone you trust and say, tell me what you think?
No.
No? Okay. So you're self-reliant to a degree now?
Well, I work on my own now.
Yeah, right. Is it just out of necessity?
Well, you got to back yourself. You know what I mean? I mean, that I'll be clear about that. This Ray and Jonathan and I, the way we worked and the things we achieved, absolutely set the standard by which I judge everything I do. So you say, do I send it out to them? Metaphorically, yes.
Right.
You know, like in my mind, I kind of go, does that measure up? You know, because we were hard asses. Like I know you're saying, we let it roll and rattle around, but I mean, in my family at least, there is a perfectionist streak, and it's a terrible affliction because nothing's perfect, and randomness plays such a beautiful part, particularly in rock and roll. It's not classical music. I still reference Jonathan and Ray. In it, that work, that early work with the Rockmelons.
You channel them to a degree.
I do,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the work the three of us did set the standards by which I do everything I do.
I couldn't agree more. I think it was outstanding.
That's and the process and all of that. And the sense of being open. And I've worked closely with people since then who've taught me a lot as well.
Okay.
It doesn't begin and end there, but really that's it. That fraught, fantastic, inspiring, amazing combination of people, as they say, taught me everything I know.
In partnership with Australian Institute of Music and Hunting with Pixels.